up, everyone? Welcome to Debating Metal. I'm your host, Kenneth Dean, the Dean of Metal, along with my co-host, Chris K. And today we look back at the career of one of the pioneers of heavy metal. Today we give you Ozzy Osbourne's greatest hits.
For over 50 years, this man has entertained the masses with not just his musical ability, but also his antics. With multi-platinum success as the original lead singer of Black Sabbath, as well as fronting his own solo band, Ozzy has quite the musical catalog. Today, Kenneth and I will choose 15 songs each from his exceptional solo career for our own greatest hits list. Any songs duplicated on both lists automatically make the cut. For tracks unique to our own lists, we'll debate to see which ones make the final cut. Then we'll arrange them in concert setlist order for the ultimate Ozzy greatest hits.
Okay, so Ozzy Osbourne. Greatest hits. I mean, everyone out there knows Ozzy. If I have to explain why we're doing an Ozzy greatest hits, then there's no point in doing this show. Ozzy has been around for quite a long time, and quite honestly, it's funny. We're doing this episode after the NFL season started, where Ozzy appeared on the halftime show for opening night. So everyone knows now we're doing this on a Friday. But the funny, and you'll eventually hear this in a couple weeks. But anyhow, to see this man all these years later, I mean, I learned about Ozzy when I was about 12, 13, somewhere around there, and have, for lack of a better term, followed his career since that time. I'm a fan. Some things, I lost my fandom somewhere along the way when he wasn't doing as much music and he was more on TV, reality shows, stuff like that. But that period in the 80s, I mean, he was an absolute nut. He was just, between the drugs and the alcohol and, his association with Motley Crue, Metallica, Anthrax, he was just off the deep end. Every time you read an article about him, saw a picture, one day he cuts his hair, he's completely bald. The next day he's biting the head off of a bat, he's biting a dove. I mean, all these weird things that happened throughout the 80s.
Yeah, he had a stigma about him because of all those antics. I remember when I was a kid, my parents weren't too excited about me listening to Ozzy, and I think they just lightened up over time. I think the biggest thing that kind of softened his image was the reality show he did with his family, because it changed the perception. Oh, he's always a silly man, he just, Sharon, all that stuff. And it was, he did some crazy shit.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that, for you to say that your parents lightened up on him, that stuff happened in the 2000s. So by that point, he's already 30 years deep into his career. Mm-hmm. So and
it took some time.
Yeah, and for the most part, like in the 90s, he, with the No More Tears and the what was that album after that? We're going to talk about it today.
After No More Tears?
After No More Tears, yeah.
Wasn't that Osmosis?
Yes, Osmosis. With that album, his music was relatively mainstream kind of metal, and
it changed a lot, yeah.
Right. So, his whole, and metal, and the scene in metal changed, dramatically. The 80s and all the people thinking that everything was satanic kind of went away. In the 90s, everybody was just angst ridden. So, his career definitely changed. He slowed down dramatically as well. Remember, No More Tours was supposed to be his retirement tour, and then I believe that the show that he did with Black Sabbath with Rob Halford, I think that was 99 or 2000. That was supposed to be his final tour. That was like No More Tours 2, so, he was supposed to end his career a long time ago. And with the release of his new album, because I believe his new album came out today, the day we're recording this, maybe should have retired a long time ago, but you know, everyone's entitled to release the music they want to release. I'm not going to take that away from him in that regards, but as far as multi-platinum caliber kind of music, I believe he's far past that point.
I'm not into the new stuff. I won't be having anything from the new stuff on my list today.
Neither will I.
Again, spoiler. But I do appreciate some of these older musicians continuing to do their thing. The fact is, if you don't enjoy it, don't buy it. There's a lot of options out there. I see these comments online all the time that are like, this guy should just hang it up. I get that to a degree, but you don't have to go to the shows. You don't have to listen to the music if you don't want to. So, I think it's great that some of these guys are continuing to do stuff. As far as Ozzy goes, I don't know. I saw that the performance at the what's the
halftime show.
The halftime show, and he kind of looked like he was being propped up by a guitar stand. It's a it's a little tough to watch.
It was. I mean, you and I had a conversation in the morning. I don't believe for a second that those vocals were live. I don't. I have a really hard time believing that those vocals were live.
What are you going to tell me next? That Paul Stanley's not singing live?
What do you mean? He's not? Shit. No, I mean, it's just one of those things where but here's the thing. Okay, so Paul Stanley has vocals from just a few years ago that he's probably tapping into. Okay. Or maybe he's recording them prior to going on tour in the studio, and he has the time to overdub and do things right, but whatever. However he's doing it, because we all know that there's a recording going on. I don't know when the last time was that Ozzy sounded good, because it's been quite some time since he's been on a regular tour. And so, who's to say? I can't speculate. I don't want to continue to speculate about it. It was interesting to watch. In that it wasn't for me. It wasn't hard to watch. It was interesting to watch because I was looking at so many different things going on all over the place. Was the band actually playing live, or were they playing to a track? It sounded live, but at the same time, Super Bowl sounds live, and that is 100% pre-recorded, and then they play on top of the track. That's the way they don't make mistakes. And you also don't have people going off the deep end and going. The new phrase that's been coming out of wrestling today is going into business for yourself. So,
I mean, that phrase has been around forever.
I know,
yeah,
but
it's just popular right now because of all the crap that's going on.
Right, exactly. So, who
I
knows?
would love to talk about that, but
oh, I know, right? Okay, so we're here to talk about Ozzy's greatest hits and not bullshit for a fucking half hour. So, last week, I believe I went first on some things. So why don't you go first this time?
Okay. Let me find my list. Where'd it go?
Well, show's over, folks.
All right, so I'm going to start in chronological order, and there's no particular order how I think this should be played out, just right from the beginning. So my number one is Crazy Train, and I've got Goodbye to Romance, then Suicide Solution, and Mr. Crowley, all four of those from Blizzard of Oz. I've got Over the Mountain and SATO from Diary of a Madman, Bark at the Moon from Bark at the Moon, Secret Loser and Shot in the Dark from Ultimate Sin, No More Tears from No More Tears, Perry Mason, See You on the Other Side, and I Just Want You off of Osmosis, and Gets Me Through off of Down to Earth, and I Don't Want to Stop from Black Rain.
Okay, so a lot of similarities, because that was kind of obvious that was probably going to happen, but there are some changes in there that or some differences in there that I didn't expect. So my list is slightly different, but there are a lot of similarities, like I just said. So let me go ahead and list it off. And again, it's going to come out in chronological order just because I was looking at the list in that order. And then we'll mess around with it later. Okay, number 1 for me, I Don't Know. Number 2, Crazy Train. Number 3, Mr. Crowley. Those are all off of Blizzard of Oz. Number 4, Over the Mountain. 5, Flying High Again. And 6, Diary of a Madman, off of Diary of a Madman. Number 7, Bark at the Moon. Number 8, Rock and Roll Rebel, off of Bark at the Moon. Number 9, Shot in the Dark, off of The Ultimate Sin. Number 10, Miracle Man, off of No Rest for the Wicked. Number 11, No More Tears. Number 12, Mama, I'm Coming Home, both off of No More Tears. Number 13 is Perry Mason, off of Osmosis. Number 14 is Get Me Through, off of Down to Earth. And number 15 is I Don't Want to Stop, off of Black Rain. So we have some differences, not a whole lot. Not like the last time when we did Twisted Sister when there was 9 differences.
Well, it was like most of them, yeah. All right. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that we're going to have to decide. It's a good list. I mean, some of those songs that you picked, I had about 25 and I had to narrow it down, and it was tough, but I had to kind of go with the ones that, not just they're my favorite now, but also maybe had some nostalgia factor in my lifetime. So, and we'll go over that as we're picking the songs.
Nostalgia factor, huh? That's cool. For me, the songs I picked, it was tough, going through the first album because that album is so good. Diary of a Madman is so good that I was like, what songs do I pick? And it was tough, and I had to leave some songs off just to put other songs on. Now, you said you had 25 songs to pick from. I only had 18 because I was kind of like, I don't need this one right now. I don't need this one. I kind of threw them off before I even put them on the list.
I just noticed on my list it says Dairy of a Madman.
Does it say Dairy?
It says Dairy, yeah.
Oh, and yours?
On my list, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was a typo that carried over.
So with 9 songs duplicated, that leaves 6 spots for the remaining songs that we have on our list. And so now you and I are going to debate which ones we're going to put on as the final 6. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, by now, most of you who listen to us on a regular basis should know how the greatest hits works. But for those newbies, and I love the newbies, Chris and I are going to go back and forth. So we're going to go by rounds, okay? So the first round, we're going to pick a song off of our own list that we want to keep. Round 2, we're going to pick a song from our list that we want to drop. Then round 3, we're going to pick a song from each other's list that we want to keep. Round 4, we're going to pick a song from each other's list that we're going to drop. And then we start all over again. By that time, we should be pretty close to done with this list, with these 6 songs or 6 spots. Excuse me. So, all right. So, why don't you go ahead and pick a song? Oh no, yeah, pick a song off your list you want to keep.
Okay. Let's see. So this one I'm gonna pick, and I know there's no way you would pick it, so I'm gonna save it right from the beginning, and that's "Secret Loser" off of Ultimate Sin.
Wow, you like that song, do you?
I love that song. The riff is so good. I think Jakey Lee is very underrated as a guitarist for Ozzy. Obviously, Bark at the Moon has its issues. Coming right after the death of Randy Rhoads. That being said, it has really little to do with the band itself and more to do with Ozzy's state of mind. There's kind of rose-tinted glasses towards Bark at the Moon because the title track is amazing, and there's a few other really good ones. But I think it's not nearly as good as Ultimate Sin, like we talked about in the past. So Ultimate Sin, I think, is really where Jake found his groove, and unfortunately, the dealings behind the scenes, everything with Sharon, trying to sort money and deal with all those kind of things that really messed up everything afterwards. And I think there's a bad taste in Ozzy's mouth towards that record now, but at the time, I think it's awesome, despite maybe it's not having the best production.
I agree with you. There was a lot of things that were going on at that time that just totally put things in flux. But when you think about what happened and when it happened, and then the time frame of the rest of the things going on, the 80s and the music business in general back in those days, it's tough to use the word unrelenting, but that's the way it appears on the surface. But the times, just living during those days, that's just the way music was. Things had a cycle that ended very quickly.
Yes.
If an album, it was selling and it just stopped selling, and also, the record stores weren't calling in the tallies anymore, and they were starting to return stuff, then you knew it was time. The album cycle ended at that point. And if the record companies didn't believe that there was another single to be had, it was dead in the water. It's time for the band to get off of tour and get back in the studio. Kiss, 6 albums in 6 albums in 3 years, really, if you think about it. And then, with in Ozzy's case, Randy died in was it February of '82?
Yeah.
Okay. And a year later or so, he's got a new album out with a new guitarist. And he had to finish up the tour, and then went to the studio. And so for all the personal things that he was going through, it's a very minute piece of time when you think about it. It's months, weeks, not years. Like today, something like this today is devastating. And, something's not going to get done by that band for 1 to 2 years.
Like, can you imagine now, like, say, for instance, the situation with Taylor Hawkins? Taylor passed away, and now they've done a tribute show, and who knows when or if they'll ever get back in the studio.
I mean, it's been already, 3 months at least?
Yes.
Or maybe even more. And so, I mean, there's no inkling whatsoever that they're going to go back into the studio and make a new album, because they were in the middle of a tour.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, didn't they release a new album last year?
That's a fair question. I'm not much of a Foo Fighters guy.
Right, but it's just amazing to think about. I mean, look what happened in the case of his Avenged Sevenfold when they lost their drummer. Okay, mm-hmm. and then Mike Portnoy stepped in, but even then that took a while for it to transpire, that whole situation. So to think about 1980, just 1 year later, comes out with a new album, Bark at the Moon. He picks a guitar player that basically, it is weird. I can't say it resurrects his career, because his career wasn't tanked at that point, but it was in flux.
Yeah.
Jake did a great job. Was he screwed? Absolutely. And we talked about this, and for anybody who wants to go back and listen to it, on episode 69, we had a head-to-head with Ozzy's Bark at the Moon versus the Ultimate Sin. And we talked relatively in depth about what happened to Jake Lee during those times. And to brief synopsis, Ozzy is credited with writing the entire Bark at the Moon album with no outside writers. And everybody knows that that's a load of bullshit. Okay, so the next album, when it was time to record, Jake Lee put his foot down and says, "I'm either getting credit or I'm walking." And they finally relented. And the same thing kind of happened. What was his name, to Phil Soussan, who brought in Shot in the Dark, and they didn't want to give him writing credits, and it was just all sorts of weird legal stuff. And Bob Daisley's playing and not playing, and who's in the band, who's not in the band. It's one of those things, because it should have been. I think Bob Daisley helped write the whole album, but then Phil Soussan came in at the end, and Bob was out. He brought in Shot in the Dark. It's weird album, weird way of doing business, and weird way of recording albums that way, especially when the main guy is not a quote unquote songwriter or a lyric writer. So that was a tough one. So yeah, Bark at the Moon is an interesting thing. So picking Secret Loser like you did, really cool song. And we talked about that album in depth. So go listen to see which one we chose as the best album, because that's an interesting conversation in itself. So you got Secret Loser. I am going to pick I Don't Know, because I don't want to lose that one either.
That was one of the ones I was really struggling with, and I was kind of counting on you picking it, because it was, I had to go with what I genuinely thought are my favorites, but I love I Don't Know as well. So that was a tough one.
All right, so now it's time for you to drop a song off your list.
Oof. I think I'm going to drop I Just Want You off of Osmosis. I really like that song. I like that album a lot. Osmosis for me, when I was in high school, that was the big album for me. And I think a lot of people got into Ozzy again when he released what was it called? Down to Earth. But for me, I was still into Ozzy by that point. I didn't really like No Rest for the Wicked all that much, but No More Tears was really good. It was one of those albums that was, Ozzy's still here. And then he released Osmosis, and I think a lot of people overlooked it. It still did very well, but I don't think it had quite that reputation. And then when Down to Earth came out, I think a lot of my friends went out and got Osmosis because they liked Down to Earth so much. So
yeah, Down to Earth was an interesting album. It was really, like, the guitar work was really, really heavy. I liked that about it, but Osmosis is interesting because Michael Beinhorn produced it, and I remember at the time reading something about him trying some fancy new way to record drums, and it was supposed to make it sound as real and as close to real as possible, and I didn't hear it. So I don't know if it was something in post-production, but it didn't sound the way that he said it was going to sound, because like they were putting, like, on the snare drum, there were like 24 mics on the snare drum, and they were layering all this stuff, and it sounded flat, really, to me. But who am I, right? Just a fan.
Well, I think that sometimes that's because you're losing that resonance, and you're trying to get the exact one-to-one audio at close range, and I don't know. To me, you're right. It sounds kind of flat. I still like the way it sounds. I don't really have much of a problem with it. But we could talk about production forever. So
yeah, we can. Okay, so you dropped I Just Want You. The rest of my songs are tough to drop. Wow. Oh, man. Holy cow. I can't believe I have to drop one of these songs off my list.
I'll just wait till I drop one of the songs off your list.
Oh, shit. That's going to be crazy. Oh, my God. Wow. I don't know where to go with this, because if I drop one particular song, we don't have any representation off that album. You know what? Since we have representation already off of Bark at the Moon, I'm going to go ahead and drop Rock and Roll Rebel, even though I really, really like that song.
That's the one I would have dropped too. So I like it. It's a good song, but it's of the ones that you have, I think it's the weakest.
And I got 4 songs left, and I don't know which ones I could possibly drop out of those 4. Oof. And you're gonna cut one of them out.
I'm gonna break your heart.
You're breaking my heart. All right, so now it's time for you to pick a song off of my list to keep.
Let's see. For me, I'm gonna go with Flying High again.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That was one that I had to drop off of mine. It was tough, but it's a classic. I've always been a big fan of that song.
I already see where this is heading. Not pleased. All right, so now it's my turn to pick a song off of your list to keep. And I've got 4 songs to choose from. And interestingly enough, I'm going to go ahead and pick Suicide Solution to keep.
Great song.
It's an awesome song. It is one of my favorite Ozzy songs. I did not pick it on my list because I didn't want to put like a bajillion songs from that first album. But
that first album is real good, though.
Exactly, that being the case, I'm like, hey, this is where we're at. So, all right, it is your turn now to pick a song off of my list to drop.
Oof. These are all good songs. That's the thing, and. I mean, to be honest, No Rest for the Wicked is one of my least favorite Ozzy albums from the classic era. I think Zach really found himself more on the next couple. But Miracle Man is the best song off of that album. Mama, I'm Coming Home is a great track too. But I like No More Tears more. And Diary of a Madman is an awesome track. So this is a tough one to pick. But we've talked about this many times before. And it's like we got to pick what we genuinely think is the best, right? So I'm sad to say.
So we're going to go ahead and cut something off that someone else thinks is the best.
No, you didn't pick it when you had the chance.
I know. So
we're going to cut Miracle Man.
Okay. You suck. But I figured that was coming. Okay, so now it's time for me to pick a song off of your list to drop. And based on the songs that are left over, there's 2 songs that stand out big time to me that I want to drop, but I'm going to go ahead and pick SATO on this particular instance to drop.
That one has a really awesome riff, and it's funny, when I get to it on the album, it doesn't quite always hit me, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I love this track. To me, it's one of the most. It's probably the most underrated song on that album, because it comes right before Diary of a Madman, right before the album ends. Side 1 is so good, and then you come into side 2, and Little Dolls is really good, and then when you get to SATO, it's like, and it's almost kind of like a point where you choose to relax. And it shouldn't be. It's a good song, but it's almost like the bathroom break song, and it shouldn't be because this epic track is coming after it. So true.
Anyhow, all right. So we have 1 spot left, and we have 4 songs to choose from, and we're at the point where we're picking
we have
the song.
1 spot left.
Yeah, 1 spot left. Or we got 2. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We have 2.
2 spots left.
I was thinking we had 5. My mistake. I'm sorry. Okay. So we have 2 spots. So we get to pick a song, but that's the thing. So, all right. This one's a weird one because normally we don't get to this point. Normally we have to throw something out from the others list, but this is a good one. We're essentially dropping a song and picking a song that we want to keep from our own list, and that's going to make the final cut. And the same thing for you. So I have 2 songs that I have to look for, and I'm basically killing one off. I'm killing off one of my babies. Man, I'm going to tell you something. This is extremely hard.
It is.
Oh, aren't you supposed to go first?
I am supposed to go first. You're all out of whack today, so
yeah. No, so this is extremely hard. So I go ahead and pick your song because I want to hear. I want to see what you're picking.
This is really tough because "See You on the Other Side" is an awesome track. It really is. For me, it has also meaning behind it because I did lose 2 friends around this time. One died in a drunk driving accident, and one died in his sleep. And you could see how this would connect to that. So for me, there's an emotional connection. Goodbye to Romance also has that, and it's an amazing song for, its own reasons. And if you really think about it, just a few years later, Randy Rhoads was gone. So these two, that's a tough choice for me. That being said, we have 4 songs off of Blizzard of Oz. And I think for me, See You on the Other Side has more meaning. So I know it's gonna get some hate, but I'm gonna pick that one.
It's not going to get hate from me. I like the song. I like the fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ozzy wrote that, with Randy in mind.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of connotation to it. It does mean so much because if you've lost someone close in your life, that song really does hit home, and it does mean a lot to a lot of people. So I have no problem with the song, and I'm glad you picked that over Goodbye to Romance, because even though Goodbye to Romance is good, it's not great, and so that's just the way I think about it. It's probably my least favorite on that album.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, because dude, the album's so strong, and then and it's not, it's all upbeat until that one song, and it's interesting because, I mean, unless you want to count D as not being upbeat, but D, anything that's guitar related to Randy or just great solos is always going to catch my attention.
Yeah,
so just this arbitrary ballad in this album full of these great songs. I don't know. It seemed weak to me, but he played it in concert a lot. So,
but also Randy sounds amazing on that song, and it showed a whole different dimension to not just Ozzy but him. And
that's the reason why I had to keep Mr. Crowley, because I would have rather have had Suicide Solution over Mr. Crowley on this list. Mm-hmm. But the solo work on Mr. Crowley is absolutely mind-boggling amazing, what he does, because you have to think about how Randy worked and then to understand how incredible that guitar solo is, because he goes in that first guitar solo, he just shreds it, and then okay, we're gonna do another take, and he shreds it again, note for note, identical, boom, right on the money. You have one on the left, you have one on the right. Oh, guess what? I'm going to do it again. And he does it a third time.
Yeah.
And it's down the middle. He's got those guitar solos so layered and perfect. And the producer, Max Norman, I mean, he was blown away by the fact that Randy could do that. There's not many guitar players that can hit it, and we talked about metronome before the show started. That's him. He was dead on, note for note. And then he comes in the second solo, and it's that little harmonic. Amazing. So I had to keep it for that reason. So that's why I dropped Suicide, but we ended up getting Suicide back because, hey, look, this is the way we work. All right, so now I'm stuck with having to pick 2 amazing songs, or to pick one amazing song over another amazing song. And this is a tough one. And just like you, I'm going to go ahead and lay this out. Mama, I'm Coming Home. Let's say it's probably Ozzy's biggest hit to the general public. Right or wrong?
That's
opinion on that?
That's fair.
It's a fair statement. Yeah. To the general public, probably the biggest hit nationwide. To the average listener, to someone who doesn't know Ozzy on a regular basis, but he hears the guitar intro and he hears Mama, I'm Coming Home, they know the song, Sort of like Nothing Else Matters with Metallica. It's a big song that everybody knows.
True.
Diary of a Madman is absolutely a masterpiece by Randy Rhoads. So, where do we go from here as far as which song do we pick? Unfortunately, one of them has to go, and in this particular case, I think just because of the generalness and the popularity of the song, I'm going to have to go with Mama, I'm Coming Home and drop Diary of a Madman. It breaks my heart to do that because I love Diary so much, but Mama has to stay on here. I'm not going to let another Alter Bridge problem go through with Open My Eyes.
Don't feel bad about
Mama,
it.
I'm coming. I know, you son of a bitch, you. All right. We have our final 15 that we're going to put in concert set list order, so let's go over it real quick.
Number 1, I Don't Know. Number 2, Crazy Train. Number 3, Suicide Solution. Number 4, Mr. Crowley. Number 5, Over the Mountain. Number 6, Flying High Again. Number 7, Bark at the Moon. Number 8, Secret Loser. Number 9, Shot in the Dark. Number 10, No More Tears. Number 11, Perry Mason. Number 12, See You on the Other Side. Number 13, Gets Me Through. Number 14, I Don't Want to Stop. And number 15, Mama, I'm Coming Home.
I like that list, although this is probably one, even though you only picked 25 songs to start with and I got up to 18, I could have put some more in there. This is one that probably could have gone to 20, but it's just good that we kept it concise like this. So now we're going to go ahead and put this in concert set list order. So for the uninitiated, the way we're going to do it is the first 12 songs are your main concert. And then songs number 13, 14, and 15 are the encores. So when you lay it out that way, the 12th song should be a concert ender type song. And, obviously 13, 14, and 15 are like an opener, a middle, and an ender. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the first song this week because I think you picked the
that's
first.
Traditionally how we do it. Whoever picks the first one goes second when we pick the list, the order. So
right, okay. So this is an interesting list because I've only seen Ozzy one time in concert. Amazingly enough. Although I've seen him 4 times total as a human, only 3 times as a solo artist. The other 3 were Black Sabbath.
I thought you were going to say I've seen him 1 time, 4 times human, and then 1 as a Prince of Darkness.
No, it's just a weird thing. I've seen him so many times, 4 times, but 3 of them been with Black Sabbath, and it's like I wanted to see Ozzy solo, and I had a ticket to see him in 1992. In the No More Tours tour, but Hurricane Andrew, I believe, pushed back his show. And then when he did come back to town, I was not there. I was out of town. I believe I was in New York at the time for vacation. So that sucked. I still have the ticket though. Never got a refund because I could have gotten a refund because it was postponed. But anyway, first song. Oh man, that's a good one. I think I'm going to go with, and I know that there's probably 2 solid openers on this one. I'm going to go ahead and go with Over the Mountain.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's the way he started the, or did he? Yeah, that's the way he started the Diary of a Madman tour. He was basically does his little intro, whatever, and then he comes out and it just goes nuts from there. So yes, Over the Mountain.
All right, let's see. From there, I'm kind of thinking we keep the pace going, and this might seem a little odd, but I'm kind of thinking Secret Loser next.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with Secret Loser. All right, so we're keeping the pace a little up. So we're gonna I don't want to slow it all the way down, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it to a normal pace. And I say, why don't we bring on Gets Me Through?
Okay, a little more slow and ploddy.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, track 4, that would be about a third through it, right? 33%.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've got... The thing about it is Ozzy genuinely has some really good music. And it's like sometimes we go through these greatest hits and it's like there's a couple tracks where you go, this is obviously a middle track. Even though we love them, it's obviously a middle one. This is kind of tougher in a lot of ways because everything feels so important.
And the funny thing on top of that is that knowing Ozzy, live, it is that he ends stuff with Black Sabbath songs. He ends the night with Paranoid.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Right, so we're not going to do that. So that so we actually have to end on a Ozzy Osbourne song.
Yeah, we'll have a bonus track at the end for the deluxe edition for the iTunes cut. Let's see. I'm kind of thinking. Let's go with No More Tears.
Ooh, well, okay. I like that song. I like that there. So that means that we have to pick up the pace. All right, how about we pick up the pace with I Don't Want to Stop?
I'm good with that. It's kind of middle ground.
Yeah, if there's a middle song that he has, this is it.
Yeah, probably. Let's see. So this will be the halfway point for the main set. I don't think it's quite ready for a slow song yet. That'll be maybe like 8, 9, somewhere around there. Why don't we do Shot in the Dark here?
Interesting. Shot in the Dark, smack dab in the middle of the set. I guess that's okay, because for some reason Ozzy doesn't like playing it.
Yeah, who knows?
Talk about being spiteful. I'm not going to play that song. I'm not going to re-release the record because I don't want to pay Phil Soussan money. Are you that much of a son? Well, she is, yes. It's not him.
You answered the question very quickly.
I really don't think it's him.
I tend to wonder sometimes how much control he has over his own life.
Did you see him standing up on a guitar stand last night?
That's part of why I wonder.
All right. We're up to song number 7. So we got Shot in the Dark. Why don't we do, at this point, Perry Mason?
Okay. I think that works.
Just get rid of all the middling shit.
I don't really see... I mean, yeah, I guess I can see it that way, but I don't feel like it's a middling track. I do kind of feel like it's... Because isn't it the opener off of that album?
That's a weird opener.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a really good song.
It goes to the testament of the album being relatively evenly paced, except and it has some ballads in it. There's nothing that's like really fast on that album whatsoever. All right, you're up to number 8.
Okay. We just did Perry Mason, and I don't see any problem with following it up here. I think number 8 would do See You on the Other Side.
Okay, yeah.
It's been a few songs since we had No More Tears at 4, and that's kind of one of the slower songs that we have on here. And I don't really feel like Mr. Crowley fits quite here. So we'll hold that one off a little longer. Mama I'm Coming Home is the other slow song we have, too.
Okay, so now I got to put in number 9. Number 9.
And that's not Love Potion number 9 or whatever bull crap that he put out recently.
Patient number 9. No. Let's go ahead, and it has to start at some point, so let's go ahead and put Flying High again here.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Because from here on in, it's some tough choices.
You're not kidding. I thought about a couple times putting Flying High again earlier, but I don't know, just sometimes when you're thinking about the way that the songs conclude and how it would continue over into the next song,
right?
Yeah, that's a big factor.
Well, this is one that fades out for like 2 minutes.
Yeah. Obviously, it wouldn't on a live show, or if it did, it would be a transition, like a set transition or something like that.
Right.
Let's see. So Flying High again, we could easily put something more exciting afterwards. But there are some tough choices. We've got, 3 more on the main set and then 3 for the encore. I'm kind of thinking because this would be, like, theoretically it would fade out. And if we're doing a greatest hits, we're always, like, thinking of it in a concert set list order, but it may be, like, somebody grabbing this off and making their own list on iTunes or Spotify, etc., right? So it would be interesting to follow up a song with that fade out with one that kind of fades in, which would be Mr. Crowley.
Ooh. I didn't think you were going there, but I'm okay with that. All right, so if we're going with Mr. Crowley there, I almost think we need to go with Suicide Solution.
Okay. And that leads us to our main set closer.
Correct. It gets crazy.
It does. I'm thinking I don't know.
Ooh, really?
Not as in I don't know what to pick.
No. I don't know. We're going to have to debate this one.
Okay.
I don't know.
You don't know about I don't know?
So yeah, exactly. So if you're saying I don't know, that leaves Bark at the Moon, Mom, I'm Coming Home, and Crazy Train. And in that order. That would be my assumption.
I'm kind of thinking that order, yeah.
Right, okay.
Because, they've walked off the stage, they said good night, everybody, and then it busts into Crazy Train. Crazy Train easily it's debatable. You said Mama, I'm Coming Home could be their biggest hit. But also, think about it in the terms of Crazy Train is on everything. Have you been to a baseball game where they didn't play Crazy Train?
Right. No, I absolutely. And that when I thought about that being, when I said it earlier, then I started thinking, oh shit, I forgot about Crazy Train is like transcended,
It has beyond its initial release.
Exactly. So it is more in the lexicon of American culture than Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Nicely put there.
But see, the way I was looking at it, and tell me what you think, if we ended the main set with Bark at the Moon, then you have that quiet intro of I Don't Know, then Mama, I'm Coming Home, and then Crazy Train. But I can see the benefits of going with I Don't Know last on this one, and then just busting open with Bark at the Moon on the encore.
I just think, like, I Don't Know isn't as big, It's a great song, but I think when you're leaving the concert, right, or you're getting to the end of the main concert, and then you go, man, I didn't hear that song, that one that I wanted to hear, and I think that to most people that's going to be Crazy Train. It's just we're fans, we've heard it a billion times. And we could probably go without hearing it and we wouldn't cry about it. But I think there's the majority of people that go to concerts are not necessarily like us.
Right.
They're going to be...
All right, so you're saying I Don't Know at number 12.
I really think so. And then just, bust it out with Crazy Train.
Oh, so you want to come out of the gates with Crazy Train?
I'm thinking Crazy Train, Bark at the Moon, Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Really?
Yeah.
So you want to end the show on a ballad?
That's a classic ballad. It's not how you would normally end a show, but it ends on a more upbeat.
See, I was figuring. See, the way I looked at it is you would bust out the encore with Bark at the Moon, and then go into Mama, I'm Coming Home, and then just end the night being all nuts with Crazy Train.
You could. I'm not opposed to that. If that's the way you want to go.
Or how about you start the encore with Mama, I'm Coming Home. It's all quiet, and then all of a sudden you hear that acoustic guitar come in. And then Bark at the Moon and Crazy Train.
I don't know.
I mean, that's just a thought. You know, I like Bark Mama Crazy.
Bark Mama Crazy.
Bark Mama Crazy. She done.
I
She
think
done lost her
that's.
mind.
I'm gonna compromise. I think that's the way to go. Bark at the Moon, Mama, I'm Coming Home, and then Crazy Train.
All right. Bark at the Moon. Mama, I'm Coming Home.
And then Paranoid on the iTunes bonus track.
a live Ozzy version.
Yes.
You know, it's funny. I bought the new Megadeth album from Amazon, and it does not have the Sammy Hagar bonus track.
What?
Yeah, because it was just a straight album. And I'm like, I haven't opened it yet. I'm going to return it, and I'm going to go to Target this weekend, and I'm buying the bonus track one.
Is it exclusive to Target?
Yeah. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, that's a good call. I would definitely want the bonus track on that. I'm not huge on bonus tracks as a whole, like when I'm just listening to like a classic album, but when stuff is released with a bonus track now, like if it was an album that was released as, 8 songs and it was that way forever, that's the way I want to listen to it. And then they release a deluxe edition years later that has 2 or 3 bonus tracks. I don't necessarily want that. I almost wish those were on like a separate CD or something. For me personally, I know that's inconvenient for most people, but with stuff that's released now, like I don't care. Put the bonus tracks on there. This is the first time I'm hearing this album.
Exactly, and the funny thing is, though, there's a Walmart exclusive, there's a Target exclusive, there's the Amazon exclusive. They all have different bonus tracks. And somehow the Japanese, they get them all.
Right?
They always get everything. Like, what's up with that?
Yeah, it's...
And
they always get songs that we don't get at all.
I know,
you have to go online to find the secret track that we just don't get.
It's unfair. I don't know why are they so favored. Anyway, I'm just joking.
Great fans.
All the yeah, exactly. They are some really good fans. All the stuff is available out there anyway, so you can always get it somehow, some way. All right, so the list goes this way. Opening the show, Over the Mountain, followed by Secret Loser at number 2. Gets Me Through. Gets Me Through at number 3.
4 more tears. Sorry.
No, I started looking. I was like, can I do this all the way through? All right.
It gets you through.
Exactly. Number 4, No More Tears. Number 5, I Don't Want to Stop. Number 6, Shot in the Dark. Number 7, Perry Mason. Number 8, See You on the Other Side. Number 9, Flying High Again. Number 10, Mr. Crowley. Number 11, Suicide Solution. And closing out the main set is I Don't Know. And then the encore, number 13, Bark at the Moon. Number 14, Mama, I'm Coming Home. And the night is ended, over, and done with Crazy Train at number 15. So yeah, I like that list. We had to keep Mama, I'm Coming Home. So I'm glad we were able to keep that.
I mean, it's a great song. I can't deny it. I did have it again on my longer list, but it's tough to choose 15. It really is. Try it yourself.
No, it is. Exactly. And especially with long careers, like that's why we had to do, who do we end up doing at 20? Or Judas Priest, I think
we did Judas Priest with 20, and then we did 2 episodes with Motorhead, but there was a reason we did that, because I tend to think that their later career really gets overlooked. So that was a special situation.
Did we only do 15 for Iron Maiden, or did we do 20?
I want to say we did 15, and it was brutal.
All right. Well, that was brutal. All right, so let's go. And that is our concert set list order. And now it's time for the big four Ozzy albums. We already did Ozzy songs, which was on episode 69 with the Ozzy Bark at the Moon versus The Ultimate Sin. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go first on these big four Ozzy albums. And number 4 for me is The Ultimate Sin. I remember that was pretty much the first album that I listened to that was new when I got my car. There was, I believe, Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet and The Ultimate Sin. And I think all summer long I was listening to The Ultimate Sin. And that was a pretty good album.
Okay.
Number 3, No More Tears. That one, what comes out in 1991, right at the same time as Use Your Illusions. It kind of got, it came in quietly because no one was expecting it. But other than that, I mean, the album had legs. It had legs. No More Tears was a great song. Mr. Tinker Train, I Don't Want to Change the World. And then My Mom Coming Home just blew the doors off that record. So that was a pretty good album. Number 2 for me is Blizzard of Oz. That is just, it's a great record front to back. It's one of those front to backers, but I can skip a song if I have to. We already know what that is because I talked about it earlier. But for the most part, it's actually this past weekend or a week ago, or whatever you want to call it. I actually took it out. I have the reissue, the 30th. Well, it's not even a 30th anniversary or whatever it is, 40th anniversary. It's just the 180 gram reissue of Blizzard of Oz, and it's just looking at the packaging and looking at the record. Seeing the Jet Records logo with the flashing lights on it, and the red and the blue and the yellow. It was so cool to look at that record spinning around on my turntable, and I'm like, it for a split second brought me back to 1981, 1982 time. It was crazy. It was really cool. So I enjoyed listening to it. I listened to both sides. I flipped the record over, so I listened to the whole thing, even Goodbye to Romance.
You make it sound like it's a bad song.
No, I know it's not. I'm just messing. It's just for the rest of the album, it's so slow and compared to everything else.
It's true.
Anyhow, number 1 for me, it was the first record I got from Ozzy, Diary of a Madman. The album cover scared me as a kid, but yet I still bought it. Then I'm listening to the introduction to Diary of a Madman, and then it ends with that the chorale, the chorus, the choir singing, and it was just very, very frightening. But the rest of the album was just awesome. Over the Mountain, Flying High Again, Little Dolls, Diary of a Madman, SATO, as we mentioned earlier tonight. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, Believer. Believer was one of the first songs I learned how to play on bass. So it was really, really cool. So that's my favorite Ozzy album. There's more of a nostalgia factor to that to be number 1. So you're up next.
Awesome. Okay, so we have some crossover for sure. Those early albums are just paramount in his career. But my number 4 is Osmosis. And like I mentioned earlier, it has kind of a sentimental meaning to it because of the time that it came out and issues that happened. Like I said, I lost a couple friends around that time, and See You on the Other Side just hit me in a different way. So I have really good memories of that album, and it's really good to boot. I think it's really where Zach hit his stride with Ozzy. It really carried over to Black Label Society. So, great album. My number 3 is your number 1, Diary of Madman. I do really love that album. I think for me, it doesn't resonate quite the same way, but I think you have that nostalgia factor that working for you. But it is a great album, it truly. My number 2 kind of surprised me, but I had to really think about this today and really yesterday, because when we talked about this a while back, we did our episode between Bark at the Moon and Ultimate Sin, and I initially when you asked me that question, you're like, which album's better? And I said Bark at the Moon, and boy was I wrong. Because when you said that, and I really questioned it, and I went and listened to every song on that album, I'm like, dang, I forgot this song was on this album. This is so good. And it really, to me, like, ever since that point, it's been a regular listen for me. So it's worked its way up in my fandom of Ozzy. And I was surprised to pick Ultimate Sin for number 2. And then my number 1 is Blizzard of Oz. That was one of the first albums from Ozzy I ever heard. It only was preceded by, I want to say, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And from that point, I mean, there's just so many good songs on it from beginning to end. I don't skip a single one, unlike you. I'm just kidding. But no, it's a great album. It's incredible. And for that to be really one of Randy Rhoads' first albums, I know he did the stuff with Quiet Riot before that. It's unremarkable at best, but for this to be really his breakout, what an amazing guitar player. And I know I'm not saying anything that's never been said before, but it has to be said. He is an amazing guitar player. And for Ozzy to be coming out of, his worst 2 albums from Black Sabbath, drug issues, whatever, and to put this out, working with great musicians, Bob Daisley, Lee Kerslake, just amazing stuff. And it still holds up to this day. Even though it has some cheesy keyboard stuff, it works. It works for what it is.
That was the style back then. So, I appreciate it for that. That whole Deep Purple kind of keyboard thing. That was the style. That was what you did. If you didn't have another guitar player, you had to have a Hammond organ keyboard player type guy.
But some of that stuff doesn't hold up today, but this does.
Yeah. Some of the stuff doesn't. And certain bands kind of didn't use it the right way. But
Agreed.
When you listen to Deep Purple, it holds up. When you listen to Whitesnake, it holds up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it doesn't hold up for someone who's not as well versed musically as some of these bands are. All right, well, that's our big 4 Ozzy albums, and that brings an end to the show. Now, remember, if you haven't done so already, this is the time to click the like button or click subscribe and download the show on your favorite podcast platform so you can listen to us anytime, any place, and anywhere.
And don't forget you can interact with us by commenting on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can send us a DM as well. If you listen to us on YouTube, be sure to leave us a comment, or you can send us an email to debatingmetal@gmail.com. So remember to tune into the next episode when we spark up another exciting metal debate. On behalf of Kenneth and myself, stay safe, and always turn it up to 11.
See ya.